Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Thanks everybody for being on the call. This is section 6 of our coaching training, and this one is titled The Learning Cycle. And it is another model to learn. And so the last couple of weeks we've talked about different models, the subconscious and conscious model, and then the cognitive model. And now we're doing the learning cycle. So we'll get started here. Unconscious incompetence. This is what we're going through now is the learning cycle, and the first stage of the learning cycle is unconscious incompetence. And basically what that means is unconscious means unaware, incompetence means incapable. So you're unaware that you're incapable. And of course everybody starts off that way when we're an infant, for sure. We don't even know what we don't know. We continue that way all the way through life because there's so many things in life that we don't even know we don't know. Our consciousness is so small compared to what we're not conscious of in the world that we can't help it to be unconscious and incompetent of what we're capable of doing early on. We come across this all the time in our stores when we have people that maybe start with this and they don't even know what the job is until someone teaches them. They don't know what they're incapable of or capable of until someone helps them understand that. And once they understand that, then they can move on. But this is the starting place for just about everybody in most every cycle, the unconscious incompetence. When unconsciously incompetent, you simply aren't aware that you're not able to do something. You're just not aware of it. It's interesting how sometimes you'll see somebody and they might have something stuck to the back of their back that says kick me, or they might have something in their teeth, some broccoli in their teeth or something, and it's funny, they're acting completely normal, but you see that and you realize, wow, they don't even know that. Well, we see this in the workplace too, where people maybe believe that they have maybe believe that they have the ability to do something, but yet they just don't, and they're not aware that they don't. For example, a young child isn't consciously aware of the fact that they can't drive because they haven't even considered the process of driving. So they don't even know they can't drive. They're just a child, and they don't maybe even realize that they're going to grow up and could be able to drive down the road. They just don't know what they don't know. So unconscious incompetence is our starting place in the learning cycle. All right. Next stage here. Conscious incompetence. Now this is a little bit different. Conscious incompetence is, at this stage, conscious incompetence is a person who becomes aware of their existing inability, recognizing flaws and weak areas. So now we're conscious of our incompetence. We're not competent yet, but at least we're conscious of our incompetence. For example, the child becomes a teenager and becomes aware that he or she can't drive like slightly older teenagers or their parents. They realize that it's harder than what they think. It's harder than what they originally thought. It's interesting. You ask an 11-year-old if they want to drive a car or if they could drive a car, and all of them believe, oh yeah, I can drive a car. You ask a 14-year-old once they get their permit, and sometimes they've come into the consciousness that they're incompetent at this. This is a lot harder than what they thought, and there's a lot more things to do when it comes to driving a car than what they originally thought. There's so many pedals. You got 2 different pedals, maybe 3 different pedals on the floor. You got gadgets on the steering column. You got this big wheel to turn one way or the other, and a gear shift and different letters on that. There's a lot to it, and until we come into that consciousness, we don't realize that we can't really drive a car. Every once in a while you'll see in the news where an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old will jump in a car and start shifting gears and will roll down the street or whatever because they don't know, or maybe even start the car and drive away. I've seen that before because they just don't know that they can't really do it. This is a vulnerable time that leads to a fork in the road. They're at a place where they can identify as being incompetent, or they can reject it and move on. I think that's important. For those that have been externally programmed to believe that they are incompetent, This stage is challenging for coaches. In other words, if a person is consciously incompetent, but maybe they're consciously incompetent because people have been telling them that all of their lives. This is a difficult place because somehow they've got to overcome what is solidified in their mind about what they can't do, and they have to figure out a way to move on to the next stage. And a coach is definitely somebody that can help with that. All right. So the learning cycles. Unconscious incompetence is the first step. Conscious incompetence is the second step. And the third is conscious competence. So conscious competence is the next step. This is where, for the first time, they're actually competent. So you're able to do what you believe that you should be doing, and you're also conscious that you're able to do that as well. So this is the beginning of the habit building stage. It takes intentionality. Intentionality is a big word here when it comes to conscious competence, because you don't become competent by accident. You only do that through conscious choice. Incompetence is actually more of a natural state that we have. So conscious competence, this is where performance improves and the effort is more conscious and deliberate. The teenager has passed their driving test, but still has to think about how they go about driving. So imagine that. You're 14, 15, 16 years old and you're driving your car. You guys can all remember this, I'm sure, how you had to think about everything that you did. You could do it, but it was a lot of work because you had to think about it every time you turned on your turn signal, or you had to think about which gear to put it in before you even take off. And you had to think about all of these things consciously. And even though you're competent, this is where it's a lot of work. Imagine, here's another example. I have a guitar. I'm not very good at it. I've never really stuck it out long enough to get good and to learn it well. And I'm still at the conscious incompetent place. But if I were to move past that, maybe just playing some chords, I am at a conscious competent place at playing chords, but I have to really think about it. I can't just do it naturally. I can't sing and do it at the same time. I can't sing anyway, but it's all conscious. If anything that happens because I'm thinking my way through it. And sometimes young people are the same way with driving cars. Well, sometimes we're like that in our jobs as well. Maybe it's steps that we need to take, or procedures that we need to take, or maybe it's any kind of systems that's in place, and we have to be conscious in order to be competent. Maybe it's making pizzas. For some of you, you may have memorized the portion charts and you just know what's on everything, and you can just go to town without really thinking too much in making your pizzas. But there's a stage before that, which is conscious competence, that you have to look and you have to deliberately and intentionally find out what goes on the pizza and make it that way. And it takes a little while, and it takes a lot of repetition over time to build positive habits and to be able to remember what goes on those pizzas, or how to play the chords naturally without thinking, or how to drive a car and turn on your turn signals instinctively instead of relying on your memory to remember how to do these things. So conscious competence is a very important stage. It's like our practice stage. It's where we start to develop habits, and it's where things start to get better for us. But it's also the stage that's the most work, because we don't always get immediate gratification out of it. Sometimes we have delayed gratification where the rewards don't come until later on. Think about learning to play an instrument. All of those hours and hours of making horrible noise and just without good results, with the hope that at some point I'll be able to make music and do it well. But it's just a lot of work to do that, to get to the point where your fingers are automatically doing what they're supposed to do. So this stage requires doing the work through baby steps without seeing immediate results. You may need to override your subconscious mind that is telling you that it's time to give up with your conscious mind that says it's time to keep going. And during this stage, that's a battle that we all have to do. And that is our subconscious might be telling us, let's just do it the easy way, the way I'm used to doing it. And our conscious mind is telling us, no, keep going, keep practicing. It will become more natural as we go. Sometimes it's really frustrating though as you're going. If you're a new employee in a business and you're learning the ropes and everyone around you is faster than you and can do things better than you, it's frustrating sometimes because you want to get there, you want to be faster because you're stuck in this conscious competent stage, or maybe even the conscious incompetent stage, but you're in that area and you're just not really good. You're not operating at the top of your level quite yet, and there's no shortcut. I always tell people in our business, you're not going to be a fast pizza maker until you've made 1,000 pizzas. And that takes a little while to make 1,000 pizzas, but usually once you make 1,000 pizzas, you're usually pretty fast. But after 50 pizzas, usually still not quite fast yet. It just takes time. So conscious competence. All right, let's keep going here.